I leave the lip gloss on. Bright things in nature are often poisonous. Let that be my defense then. Let aspen watch and predators prowl and all the waiting jaws yawn wider. I will be a ruin to consume. This is The Honeys by Ryan La Sala. Mars. A genderfluid teen goes to his sister's prestigious summer camp of outdated gender norms to learn more of her sudden and mysterious death. Hi, my name's Dyllon, and you're listening to Shelf Love, a lighthearted podcast where I work through my rapidly expanding TBR list and share my thoughts and feelings on every book I finish. Buzz bitches, I read The Honeys. It's one of those books that gets you right from the get-go. The first chapter, the opening scene, is when Carolyn, Mars' sister, dies. And I knew something happened to her. I knew it was going to be kind of fucky. But she comes into his room at night, and she just randomly attacks him. And while they're fighting, she breaks through... is it called a banister? It's like a railing or whatever from the stairs. And the both of them fall to the floor. But he lands on top of her, and her body kind of cushions the fall. It was kind of crazy. And then in the second chapter, I didn't write down many quotes that I liked because I forgot to keep track of the quotes I liked. But I wrote one down here. Emptiness fired through my memories like buckshot, so scattered that I can't quantify what's gone. I can't count it. I can't measure it. My sister becomes a constellation of voids. In these early chapters, the whole book, Mars is very in the middle of his grief, but especially at the beginning here, it's pretty heavy. But he has this dry, sarcastic tone and sense of humor that I really, really like. So I was drawn to Mars immediately because even here in the opening, you can see that. And we meet the Honeys really early on too. They're a group of 3 girls that go to the summer camp that Carolyn was at. Bria, Sierra, and Mimi. They, right away, I was like, they have to be some kind of hive mind thing because they move super in sync. They like speak to each other in glances almost. And at the start of the book, they're doing a celebration of life for Carolyn. There's some freaky body horror with her casket. It's open. After everyone leaves it alone, Mars goes back because he wants to get away from the crowd. And he finds the Honeys are looking over her and they're checking her jewelry and stuff. So Mars goes over after they leave to see what they changed. But a bug flies out at him. He has bandages around his hand from when Carolyn attacked him, and the bug is trying to get underneath them to get into his skin, and it was so disgusting. I loved it. I'm always going on and on. I love body horror. And then the second I get anything with body horror in it, I'm disgusted. Which I guess is kind of the point. I don't think I'd trust somebody who wasn't disgusted by it. Oh my god, and the mom's name, Mars's mom, I forget his dad's name because it didn't stand out to me, but the mom's name is Heather, and I thought that was really fun since the Honeys are very, Heather's coded. At first they don't want to send Mars to the summer camp because he'd gone before as a kid, but he had to go home early because he really didn't like it. So he has to trick them basically into sending them. He just keeps outplaying them in these, mind games. It does a really good job of showing how tactical, I guess, Mars is. He's very cunning. And then at chapter 6, I noticed the formatting, how pretty it is. The chapter headers, the title, I should say first, the cover, it's just the Honeys and it repeats over and over, but every time it repeats, the text gets meltier. And then they do that with the chapter headers too, where they start to melt. Oh, I did have another quote here. The camp slogan. We came as one and left as many. We came with nothing and left with everything. total hive mind vibes the second he steps foot in here. I started to find myself relating to Mars a lot more once he shows up at camp, especially for his distaste in getting lumped in with like the other guys in the guys' cabin doing guy things. Obviously, it would be different for me where he's gender fluid and I'm not, but you know, it's resentment all the same, right? And we're finally meeting our boy Wyatt. Wyatt is definitely a favorite character for me. It's weird because like I spent a lot of the book not trusting Wyatt. He's a leader in training. He shows Mars around the camp, but he's the nephew of like the girl in charge, and he's a pretty big wet blanket, big rule follower, so I of course suspected him of being a snitch the whole time. And Mars is on a secret mission to find out what happened to his sister. Like, we can't have this wet blanket getting in the way. They also keep throwing around that Mars had a meltdown, and I was so... They don't show it here yet. They talk about it later, though, more. I was so excited to learn what it was. Oh, there's another character they introduced pretty early on, too. His name's Brayden. He has this, like, frat bro, faux chill attitude, and it's so unnerving. Spot on, too. Mars keeps making, like, gay jokes, though, and they all go over his head, basically. It was pretty funny. There's one part, though, where Brayden is taking Mars to, like, his bunk with all the beds and stuff, and they're going through Mars's bag because they have to check, and Brayden finds something, like, totally wrapped, and it's kind of in a weird lumpy shape, so he's not sure what it is, and Mars is like nodding for him to go open it, and then when Brayden opens it it's like a sports bra that Mars brought. Oh, embers. We have to talk about embers. There's this thing they do at the camp. It's called embers. It's like a campfire, basically. The whole camp gets together and they talk about, I don't exactly remember what, togetherness and what they learned, some shit like that. But on the first one, Wendy, the girl in charge, she talks about Carolyn, how much they miss her and stuff like that. And then they like circle around Mars and they like put their hands on him. And like, it's supposed to be a comforting thing. Mars hates it. He doesn't like the way they're talking about her, first of all. But then when they all come in and touch him, he hates that even more. Like, the warmth of it, how crowded it is. And the second I read that, it like zapped memories up from my brain, I guess. I used to go to like, not like a church, it was a church. I used to go to church a lot. Honestly, I'm very lucky to be able to say it was largely a really good experience for me. But one thing I didn't like is like prayer circles when they're about you and you have to stand in the middle and everyone comes in close and they like put their hand on you to pray. Was not a fan of that. It's definitely very like, you feel very enclosed between all these people and hands. I especially didn't like when people would pray from behind me because they would have their hands on my back, and it just, something about it like really freaked me out. Ooh, the honeys. This is off topic. This is something else. Actually, before we go something else, in Embers, there's a part where Mars is looking through the crowd for the honeys, and he does find Bria, but when he finds her, she's already looking back at him, and it's really creepy. What I was about to say before that with the honeys, they do this really cool thing where they agree on things by snapping fingers above their heads, and it kind of like applause and like a poetry thing where they snap instead of clap. It's like that, but they hold their hands above their head. It just really reminded me of the way bees will vibrate around the hive. I think to scare away predators. I think that's what they do. But also, their Heather's vibes get even stronger when we are reintroduced to the honeys here. They're playing croquet. I know that's a game anyone can play, but as far as I'm concerned, it was invented by and for the Heathers. No one else can play it. There's this really cool psychological element to the honeys. the camp has this sort of entity it's following Mars around and it's messing with him a lot. The camp itself is sort of the entity, like it's almost alive. There's a lot of parts where he mentions it feels like the trees are watching him. The dream sequences though are so fun. They're sketchy and they're weird. There's one I have written down a little bit of here where Mars is in a dream inside a dream and there's flashbacks. But during the second dream, there's these real world consequences. Also, big important news, there's a perks of being a wallflower joke. I already loved Mars by this point, but man, if I didn't, this would have been the one that get me. When he uses a fob to unlock the lab, I whistle and say, "The perks of being a wildflower." But I don't think he gets it. Wyatt, unfortunately, does not get the perks joke. A lot of Mars's jokes, I guess I shouldn't say a lot, but a good few of Mars's jokes go over Wyatt's head, and this is why he just isn't cut out to be the number one top dog favorite. He doesn't know perks. Sucks to suck. Also, Wyatt kind of hates on the honeys, and I get they're like the scary, seemingly hive mind thing or whatever, and Mars and Wyatt keep having these cute bonding moments, but I still trust the honeys more than anyone else at the camp. I know the honeys are very clearly set up to be the villains here, but they're the girlies at a camp where most of the characters are other guys. Of course, my trust will gravitate towards them over everyone else. Mars and Wyatt talk about random shit a lot though, and it is really fun. Wyatt is like this big nature dork, so he likes to ramble. The most memorable of it all is they get into this debate about spiders and how they would wink. Mars is like, if a spider could wink, would they use 4 eyes or just the normal one? Do you wink with one eye or do you wink with half your eyes? Is like the question. And Wyatt's being like, well, actually, they can't wink, they don't have eyelids. So Mars is like, well, I said if they. So if they could wink, how would they? And Wyatt decides they would probably wink with one eye because the point of winking is usually to be like kind of sly about something. It's like a little secretive. It was really sweet. It was really silly. But then later, they have this like big fencing tournament and Mars fences, so he wins. Well, at first he doesn't want to play, but he enters last second. He wins because he's Mars. He's amazing. He can do anything. But there's a part where like all the guys are like cheering for Mars, and he finds Wyatt standing near the back of the room, and he winks at him, and he calls it his like most spidery wink or something. It was really sweet. Not to say I trust Wyatt, because I don't. He's a man who hates the honeys, and they're so cool and freaky. So I don't trust him, but I do like him. One of the characters his name's Callum, and sure, there may be an entity hunting down Mars at this camp, and sure, the honeys are very noticeably weird and part of some kind of hive mind. But I'm not scared of the honeys. I trust the honeys, even if I shouldn't. I don't care. But Callum is such a realistic, like, tangible threat. He's very grounded in reality. He's just an asshole, basically. But he's also a man, and that kind of makes him scary. He's the one that Mars beats in that fencing tournament I just mentioned. And so they're playing a game of Capture the Flag at night, and Callum corners Mars in the woods alone to be a dick, and basically he's just looking for an excuse to like kick the shit out of him a little bit. But the honeys, my girls, come to the rescue, because I knew I could count on them. I knew I could. The girls, they have his back. They do some weird shit to Callum. They fuck him up pretty good, actually. The way they're described in this scene is so mesmerizing. They shift in Mars's view a lot. Kind of like they're too fast to be like fully perceived by his mere mortal eyes. They're weird. They're freaky. They warp Mars's and Callum's memory of what happened. Neither of them remember it. So, am I supposed to be scared of the honeys? Probably. Almost definitely. Am I scared of the honeys? Maybe a little bit. But they're my girls. They just saved Mars, my favorite character. They got his back. The girls and the gays, they stick together. It's like the Jennifer's Body line, you know? I'm not killing people. I'm killing boys. Except they didn't even kill him, so they're even better than that. I do not judge them. There's like a calm after that chapter. Actually, there's a description I really like where, because everyone's really tired, the Capture the Flag game is, they play it at night and it's not like an official camp activity, so they're all kind of secretive about it. So the next morning, all the campers are really tired, and I didn't write it down the line exactly, but it's something about how they're all connected by that tiredness now, just like everything else at the camp. Also, there's a part where Mars sneaks over to Cabin H. That's where the honeys stay. It's by a bunch of beehives, and he's sneaking in. Nobody's inside, though, because they're all out front, and they're all sitting in the grass, like, surrounding Bria, and she looks like a cult leader, which still is not, like, instilling the fear in me. I'm not afraid of her. You know, God forbid a girl have hobbies, right? It's just a little cult, possibly hive mind. But Sierra, one of the honeys, she is still in the cabin. She finds Mars when he comes knocking. But she's really sweet, though. Like, she's not scary at all. She takes him inside. They do each other's nails. They end up talking about Carolyn a lot. And, like, the nail polish was hers. And so she lets Mars keep it. And they're crying together. And, again, I don't remember exactly what she says. But she's rooting for Mars. Or at least she seems like she's rooting for Mars. She wants him to survive whatever's going to happen next. And I knew I was right rooting for my girl. She's really like Heather McNamara coded in that chapter. They're actually all really, really like... They remind me of the Heathers a lot as characters. Now, not to be the typical Arrow A stereotype that I occasionally am, but Mars starts to form a crush on Wyatt, and the frustration I felt like pulling hair out. You ever have a friend you want to sit down and shake their shoulders and be like, it's just some white guy? That's what I was feeling. Like, Mars, you need to wake up. You're too good for him. You've got more important things going on than him. Forget it. Drop it. Ignore him. Like, I like Wyatt. I like his rambling nerd facts. But now is not the time. Especially for, like, wet blanket, know-it-all. I mean, Wyatt? Really? Even the name is like, come on, Mars. And there's a part here where they're like, all of the guys leave the campground for some wilderness manliness bullshit. But animals come raiding where they're camping at, and they get into all the food and just totally fuck them over. Later, though, Mars finds out it's because something, or the entity or whatever, put honey in his bag overnight. That's what attracted the animals. But when Wyatt sees it, he's telling Mars, you know, he can't have that, he'll get in trouble. So right away, of course, I'm like, oh, here's the fucking wet blanket himself, here to tattle and rain on the parade. But Wyatt is actually pretty chill about it. They share the honey together, they eat it together, he promises to keep it secret, and it's really sweet. Too bad he's a man, and I already said it, I don't trust him, so it doesn't really matter how sweet he is. Now does it? And then a few chapters later here, it mentions how Mars and Carolyn used to mismatch their formal clothes at their mom's parties. Their mom is like not exactly sure what, I don't really remember, something, I want to say political. So she has fancy parties for fancy people, And Mars and Carolyn get bored at these parties, so they sneak off to goof around like kids do. And they would mismatch their clothes sometimes. Except Mars would... They got caught one time and he got in a bunch of trouble. Which, mood, by the way. Me and one of my sisters used to get in trouble for that too all the time. Mostly me, actually, but still. This chapter also marks a pretty clear point for me where I just like fully trusted the honeys. Mars, he's getting really emotional about Carolyn, and they go to hide away in a bathroom from everybody to cry it out. But when they get in there, he finds the honeys, all three of them are sitting in the bathtub smoking together. And then while they're talking, they end up doing each other's makeup and swapping clothes. It was so cute. This chapter in general, definitely a highlight for me. There's also a part where, because Mars is femme right now, because they were swapping clothes with the honeys and stuff, and she's sitting with the other girls, and Wyatt comes by. I don't remember what he's coming to say to Mars, but he sees her with the honeys, and he's kind of flustered a little bit, and all the girls are like giggling about it, and they're telling Mars that Wyatt is so in love with her. It's really funny, very sweet. Also very accurate, I have to say. My girlies love pretending people are in love with me. And Mars finally gets assigned to work on agriculture with the beehives with the honeys, because his whole mission is to get close to them and like infiltrate them basically to figure out what happened to Carolyn. And, hail to our eternal ruler, glory to Mars, all that. Love Mars. Love them so much. But something horrible happens immediately afterwards. It was horrifying. I think it was at the end of the chapter, too. No, I think it was the start of the next one. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that Mars was talking to Wyatt, and Wyatt doesn't remember who Sierra is. And then pretty soon nobody remembers who Sierra is. And I was losing my shit. I love Sierra. She was my little Heather McNamara, and now she is gone. And the reason Mars couldn't sign up for agriculture is because it's just for the girls, especially just for the girls in Cabin H, because they're right next to the beehives. But because Mars managed to get themselves placed on agriculture, Wendy, the bitch in charge, the two-faced snake she is, she also signs up Wyatt for agriculture, so he can be her little guard dog, little tattletale snitch he is, following Mars around everywhere. But joke's on her, because Wyatt, for all my underlying distrust for him, at least has gotten the memo that Mars is to be adored at all times. He is never slacking on the Mars love. I actually feel like I kind of learned a lot about bees reading this. Maybe I'm just stupid and they're like common facts, because I was bragging about all my new bee facts to one of my friends, and he knew them all already, all of it. It was all, did you know if a queen bee is ineffective, the worker bees will kill her and shit? And he's like, yeah, I know. And I was like, oh, okay, but did you know that? Yeah, I know. It was actually pretty funny. And the hive mind? Oh, the hive mind is so cool. I don't want to be basic and say it's like my favorite detail, or I guess favorite thing in the book, but it's probably my favorite thing in the book. The hive mind is so cool. It's called The Lace, and there's a scene when it's first... It's not the first time it's like properly introduced. I guess the first time it has like a really, really strong hold on Mars. They accidentally connect with Bria, and they're sharing their movements, and they keep pressing into each other's memories. It was really cool. Short-lived, but really, really cool. And Mars starts getting like really fully sucked into the hive mind over the next chapter. They barely remember what they're doing there. doesn't remember Sierra at all. It was so horrifying. And they keep doing this thing where they ask questions in their head, and then one of the girls in the cabin will answer it out loud. Like, Mars will think to himself, I don't know, I wonder how the weather is today, and then one of the girls in the cabin will be like, oh, it's gonna be sunny all day today. It's so fun to see this, like, horrific idea be played out in such, like, a cutesy, girly way. It's very cottagecore the whole time you're reading it, because Mars has no idea this awful thing is happening, and you're just watching it play out. And when they finally get their memories back, Mars separates themselves from the lace during this, like, interpretive dance thing going on. There's a talent show, and the honeys and this other girl do an interpretive dance. At first, Mars is seeing visions, glimpses of her memories during the dance. But through the visions, he gets his own memories back, and that snaps him out of it. And then when Mars kind of wakes back up to reality and they look up to the stage, Bria is standing there, staring right back at them, and she is pissed the fuck off. She horrifies me. And then what might be my favorite chapter, now that Mars has their memory back and they know that some crazy weird shit is going on, they go into this, like, really crazy paranoia mode, and it's such a mood. Sometimes you're up all night paranoid, and Mars gets that. He does, though, make this giant Excel spreadsheet, a rock bottom I'm horrifically familiar with. I hate Excel. If I ever have to make a spreadsheet again, I might just kill myself. Basically, this whole thing happens where Wyatt finds Mars, and he's all angry. And Wyatt's like, oh, I'm sorry, but I just have to report this because he's a fucking snitch. Only the next morning, we find out that Brayden went missing on his way to tell Wendy. Mars fan club, can I get a fucking good riddance? Honestly, fuck that guy. And even if he wasn't a piece of shit, for the body horror we get in return, it was a very fair trade. Mars and Wyatt find him in this abandoned hotel, and the hotel is almost entirely overtaken by a giant beehive. And they find Brayden in the basement, and his body is rotten, and he's, like, badly hurt and made of honey. Even when they're trying to pull him free, his body is just falling apart, decomposed. It's honey. Actually, there's a really funny part where Mars and Wyatt come back to their hut after they find Brayden, who does die. His body crumbles apart. And again, good riddance. I don't give a fuck. But they get back to the cabin, and all the boys are awake waiting for Mars. And at first he's freaked out, but then he finds out the only reason they stayed awake and they covered for them was because they thought Mars and Wyatt were out in the woods hooking up. The next day they get separated, though, and not to say I trust Wyatt now, but I was so stressed that I actually was really, really worried. And then later that chapter, while he's still separated, the honeys, all the girls in general actually, they finally operate as the single entity being all connected by the lace. Bria finds Mars through a crowd, and Wyatt dropped his keys while they were, like, escaping. So she shakes the keys, and Mars can hear the jingling of it through her ears, like, still partly connected to the lace. Horrifying shit. Mars does manage to escape, and in my favorite twist of the whole book, I lost my shit. I was waiting for it the whole time. Wyatt does finally betray Mars. He gets possessed, and they have this, like, huge fight. It was so exciting. Definitely, I don't know, I keep saying this is my favorite part. This is my favorite part. I say it constantly, but this is one of my favorite parts. One thing about me, I can never pick a favorite. Not for anything. They fight, Mars escapes, and then the honeys capture Wyatt and they save Mars. And there's this whole twist here where Mimi formed her own splinter swarm to control Wyatt and kill Sierra. And then, because Bria's really, really pissed about the whole thing, obviously. And Mimi is a queen because, first of all, she actually does the Jennifer's Body line in the book. I'm not hurting people, Mimi whines. I'm hurting boys. So we stand. And then when Mimi is also saying why she targeted Mars, Bria gets on her back about it because they have a rule. They basically they only attack like shitty guys. And Mimi's trying to defend her choice to target Mars so much over the summer. In the middle of the argument, Bria turns to Mars and she's like, "What are your pronouns again?" And Mars is like, whatever, basically. And then Bria turns back to Mimi and she's like, "See?" Mars isn't out of the woods yet, though. There's this whole thing with this, like, all the adults that run the camp and of the rich families that send their kids to the camp, they're a cult, basically. They have this saying, "The hive is higher." They repeat it a lot. It's really creepy. The honeys work for them, really. They need a new queen, and they're going to make Mars the queen. And Mars passes out, and he sees Carolyn. It it tells you pretty blatantly that the parents are evil by this point. But holy shit, they're like a whole other level. They go through Carolyn's whole backstory this chapter, and the parents are awful. Basically, her entire life, their parents had been raising Carolyn to be the queen, but it was never meant to be her. The Lace never wanted her. They just had their own twin, and it was Mars all along. So now Mars wakes back up to reality. She's the queen of the hive now. I don't know what the fuck these people were thinking, putting big shot anti-authority, don't tell me what to do Mars in charge of, like, everything they built here. But, hail to the fucking queen. First thing they want Mars to do as queen is kill Bria. They feel like she betrayed the honeys and blah, blah, blah. Mars can hear in his mind all the girls' thoughts, and they're all, like, pleading him to spare her. Mars does not. She is a girl's girl, and she stands up for her homegirl Bria, that terrifying... I love her. She's so creepy. Mars turns on the cult. Hail to the queen. Bees are flooding in. People are running. Mars's parents, they try to stop her for a second, but they don't stick around. And there's a bit of a flash forward. Mars killed her parents. Not even, like, on page either. There was a mysterious fire. How unfortunate. Mars is at the camp now. She's in charge. She's confident. I love that for her. I love how happy she seems. But now with her parents dead, she's going to be living at the camp full time as Queen of the Hive. She's just so different now. Like, in a very literal sense. I mean, she is something else now. And Mars says it themselves, too. He doesn't know where he ends and the hive begins. They're kind of... that's how hive mind works. And Mars is now the queen of it, so... It's just really bittersweet to have somebody so defined by their individuality be a part of everything. This book really was just such an amazing journey, a great read. I'm so glad I started with this book. This was like the perfect one to get me back into reading again. It's one of those books that are just so good it leaves kind of an emptiness behind it, you know what I mean? I can definitely say with confidence, Mars is my favorite character. As basic as it might be, where they're the main character, I just felt really, really connected to them. Like, a lot. Like, I connected to Mars a lot more than I was expecting to. Am mildly worried this will send me into some kind of gender identity crisis. What's the word? Gender envy? Is that it? Is that the word? I think Mars is giving me that. Even beyond that, there's still so many other things that draw me to Mars. They're cunning and resourceful. Just two other things I love in a character. And that line about bright things in nature being poisonous still stuck with me. I think of it all the time. It goes so hard. And the foreshadowing behind it too. I will be a ruin to consume. And they take her into the hive, and that was the end of that for them. Mars has also kind of unlocked pretty forgotten childhood memories of wearing makeup and dressing up and being the only boy allowed at girls' night. I really appreciate Mars knows when to choose his battles, but he doesn't back down either. Like, when he's wrong, he sets it right. But he doesn't go on the offensive until he's good and he's ready. He plays it smart. As long as it fails to drop them in second place too, I would definitely be lying if I said it wasn't Wyatt. I love his dorky rambling. I love seeing him realize his feelings for Mars, and even stubbornly distrusting him no matter how much the book made it seem like he could be trustworthy was also fun. I loved basically every scene with him, really. Third favorite character, Bria, of course. If you don't know this about me, I have types with favorite characters. My friends make fun of me all the time, my brother especially. And the evil and or misunderstood girl, she is always there. She's always there. I'm honestly surprised she's not number one right now, and it's only because Mars is... Is there any other word to describe them than just Mars? They are so amazing. Bria is definitely the creepiest part of this book. That alone, I feel like... I mean, she's like our Heather Chandler, really. And I do like the rest of the honeys, too. Sierra really made me emotional. Mimi, she's a really cute name, and she uses that Jennifer's Body line. So, Sierra is definitely Heather McNamara. Bria, of course, is Heather Chandler, and Mimi... I mean, she does fit Heather Duke pretty well. At first, I thought, it's just the last slot left, which, how ironic of Heather Duke. But it does fit a lot. Mimi is a very jealous, conniving girl boss when you really get down to, like, the core of her. Heather Duke is actually my favorite Heather. She's very misunderstood, I think. I think all the Heathers are misunderstood, but I feel like Heather Duke gets the worst of it. I feel like people water them down a lot. Like, Heather McNamara just becomes the nice one, even though she really isn't even that nice. She's just kind of stupid. And Heather Chandler gets made out to be this very, like, comically demonized figure, mostly because of the musical. I think it's because of how funny she is as the ghost haunting Veronica that's made her like this. Because she's really not that over the top in the movie. It's definitely a lot clearer that Heather Chandler is also a victim in the movie. And then Heather Duke, she also gets villainized by people a lot, I feel like, and she is awful. I'm not saying none of them are not awful. They're all terrible. I think it's shitty that people will turn around on Heather McNamara so quickly and then just refuse to change their mind on Heather Duke at all. As if Heather Duke isn't any worse off mentally than McNamara. And this is where the Heather rabbit hole stops. This is for the honeys. We're talking about the honeys. I'm not talking about the Heathers, because I would probably be here for hours. Actually, speaking of movies, I seen on... Where did I see it? I think it might have been Twitter. The Honeys is getting, like, turned into a movie, I think. I'm pretty sure I read that. No, I need to fact check this. The Honeys is definitely being turned into a movie. I'm so fucking excited. I'm going to be so annoying when this comes out, because I'm not going to go talk to all my friends about some random book they don't know. I will, however, drag all my friends to see a movie they have little to no interest in. I think they would, though. But if they don't, they have to watch it anyway. I will probably watch it far too many times. If it's even half as good as the book, I'll be obsessed. I mean, I've only read The Perks of Being a Wallflower once, and I loved the book so much more than the movie, but I have watched the movie like 3 or 4 times. There's a convenience to watching a movie over the book. I'm so excited. I wonder who's going to play who. I cannot wait, guys. I was really worried that once I was done with the book and recording this, that the Honeys would just be over for me, but the movie will fix that. Before I end this, I do want to say, I really want to say thank you for listening. Really, really thank you for listening. Which I hear how basic that sounds, and I mean pretty redundant, really, but I'm really scared of trying new things, especially things like this. So if just you making it this far, whether you liked it or not is one thing, but just making it this far for me, I really, really appreciate it. I don't even know what to say. I don't know if I would ever know the words to say how much I appreciate it. I would also like to thank you for my bookshelf. I put it together myself, so none of the shelves are straight. They're all crooked. The shelf itself actually is crooked, and I feel like at any moment it could entirely collapse. So, one less book on the shelf is a victory, prolonging its lifespan with one book at a time. We're practicing shelf love here. We came as one and left as many. We came with nothing and left with everything. The hive is higher. Goodbye. I hope we get to talk soon. This has been Shelf Love. This episode's book was The Honeys by Ryan La Sala. Links for finding the book and the author are below. You can find more of this show on YouTube at Shelf Love, and you can follow me on Twitter at Dyllon_writer. I would also want to thank my friend Tom for making the art for the podcast, and my friend Skylar for the music. You can find their links in the description too. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope I'll see you next time.